Professor Amanda Gouws is with Stellenbosch University. She joins us now via our video link. Prof, it's great to have you with us this morning on the program. I mean, when we think about elections 2021 still, now the second day after voting day on Monday, we're still talking about the issue of voter turnout. Is it fair to say that this election, it's not about voter apathy in so much as it's about those who stayed away wanted to make a political statement?
Yes, I think so. I think there were certain factors like the weather or people afraid of COVID, but those are very small. The reason why people did not vote is a certain alienation. They are fed up with parties, they are fed up with empty promises, and there's a certain amount of hopelessness as well, in the sense that their lives don't change. Every election, they think it's going to get better, and instead it's getting worse. So we can think of it as a vote of protest, but protest is more or less an active thing. So what we see here is sort of the withdrawal of support for the political and specifically the party political system, and that is very dangerous for a democracy because it speaks to the issue of legitimacy. When a government loses legitimacy, it's because the people do not accept the governance as valid and accept the authority of the government. So what we see here is the loss of legitimacy, and it's very hard then to govern people who do not actually accept the governance that's being exercised over them.
Yeah, I mean, and the voter turnout numbers bear that out. 46% insofar as the turnout is concerned so far. But when we take into consideration the number of people who were eligible to vote, not only the number of people who actually registered to vote, but those who were eligible, that number in terms of voter turnout goes as low as 30%. It's a sad day for our country, isn't it? For a country like ours, where the right to vote was such a hard-fought one.
Exactly. And people who are eligible to vote, but 46 million. And of that number, only 26 registered. So, more than another 20 million just decided not to register. And many of them are young people. They are the future leaders. If they are so disaffected by the whole system, we really face a serious problem with our democracy. And I think, here we have to blame corruption in the political parties. We have to blame the fact that service delivery is so absolutely dismal in most of the municipalities. And it's hard to think, how do we go forward to actually repair these municipalities in a situation where people actually think that it's not going to make a difference anyway.
So, when we talk about poor voter turnout or people deciding not to go to the polls in any given election, there's some debate, isn't there, around who that benefits. Does that decision benefit the governing party? Does it benefit the opposition? Does it benefit smaller parties? How do you see that playing out in these elections?
Well, it benefits the party whose voters go out to vote. And it seems to me in this case, the ANC has a very loyal support base. And we see that they are actually getting the majority of the vote, even though it is below 50%. And I have to point out here, what that means is that more people did not vote than voted. But, if you don't go to vote, it means that your vote just doesn't exist, and that benefits the party that the people, vote. And in this case, it's actually benefiting the bigger parties.
Hung municipalities, pardon me, and coalitions, they're now a big theme, of course, for the 2021 local government elections. In terms of service delivery, both scenarios are true. Coalitions don't necessarily mean that municipalities are better run. By the same token, governing a particular area of the country outright doesn't mean better services for people either. So what's going to happen now post-2021, in the months and weeks to follow, as the horse trading now begins, insofar as coalitions is concerned?
Well, you see, it depends on how close to 50% the parties that has the majority of support. So, if it's say 48%, you can go into a coalition with a smaller party. But if the gap is much bigger, parties will have to go into coalition with the EFF, for example. And we know that where the EFF are in coalitions, they introduce a populist element. And they sort of, change from side to side in order to get their way in terms of the issues that they want to pursue. So in that sense, we're going to have a serious instability. But I think what's really important is the Action SA in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. They've actually large percentages there. In Johannesburg, 16%. That's quite significant. So parties can go into a coalition with Action SA. So you have people with experience and who want to do service delivery. And in those municipalities, I think you will have oversight mechanisms that the smaller parties then do oversight over the bigger parties or the parties that form sort of the coalition. And that's important. That can be actually lead to good governance. But where you have this sort of instability brought in by the kingmakers, we've seen it didn't work in Nelson Mandela Bay. It was problematic in other municipalities in the past 5 years, and we'll just have more of the same in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, very interesting to see what some of the projections are telling us about Gauteng in particular so far, Professor Gouws. Tshwane, the ANC projected to lose around 7 or 8% there in Tshwane. In fact, putting the governing party in the country, at least, neck and neck with the Democratic Alliance in Tshwane. In Johannesburg, you talk about the factor regarding Action SA. It overtakes, according to these projections, again, it overtakes the EFF as the party that's third in the lead.
Yeah, so I think that the support for the Action SA is really important because it shows us that there's a need for people for a new party. And a party that's distanced themselves from corruption, that show good governance in the past in terms of Herman Mashaba. So you see the deep need expressed there. And, we may see, in a sense, this as the beginning of party political realignment. That voters are so tired of the corruption in the ANC that they shift their support to other parties. And this may just be the beginning of it. So, I think what we will see is that if parties are really serious about staying in power, they will have to improve significantly the service they deliver in the next 5 years.
Yeah, Professor Amanda Gouws is with Stellenbosch University. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning.